I'm Craig the geologist, and I'm on a gorgeous black sand beach. Am I in Hawaii? No, I'm not. I'm in the Keweenaw Peninsula of Michigan. So what's the deal with all this, huh? Come check it out with me. The Keweenaw Peninsula is home to maybe some of the only black sand beaches that you'll find in the United States outside of the Hawaiian Islands. They're beautiful, gorgeous. One characteristic you might not realize about the sand, though, is it's gay. Like really, really gay. This is as gay as sand gets. I mean it. No, seriously, gay sands. What, do you think I was a homophobe? The gay sands are located in Gay, Michigan, which is on the less visited eastern shore of the Keweenaw Peninsula. And yes, they are more or less okay with the gay jokes. Their biggest tourist attraction in town is probably the giant sign for the gay bar that everyone stops and gets a photo in front of. These gay sands, though, aren't the only black sands in the Keweenaw. You got some on some of the inland lakes, and there's a gorgeous one out on the west coast of the Keweenaw. This one is on the east coast. But what's the deal with them? Why are they here? Well, it's true that there is a lot of basalt in this area. I mean, the basalt is what they were mining to get to the copper in this region. But the basalt isn't really what's responsible for these beaches. The basalt is what these beaches are made of, but they're not responsible for it. These beaches are entirely man-made. During the mid-1800s and early 1900s, when the copper boom was in full swing and the mining industry was dominating every aspect of life in this region, there was out-of-control mining. I wouldn't say out of control, but there was a lot of mining, and there wasn't a whole lot of regulation. Environmental laws, what are those? And so, what do you do when you extract the rock from the earth? You get what you can out of it and you dump the rest in a tailings pile. Well, there's a lot of material left behind in those tailings piles. So what do you do when you don't have enough money to mine anymore, but you still want to extract some good copper? Well, you take those tailings piles and you crush them up at stamp mills, and then you end up with this material, stamp sand. The stamp sand is just crushed rock from the mines. A little bit of rhyolite, giving it some red color, mostly basalt, giving it that black sand look, along with a little bit of epidote and some pink zeolite style minerals mixed in. None of this is natural. After the material went through a stamp mill, usually located next to a body of water, they would dump the stamp sand that was waste, the stuff they didn't want, as quickly as they could. Why on earth would there be an agate out here? That might be the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Let's go into my pocket. But yeah, so they dump it in the nearest body of water. They say, hey, there's a beach over here. Let's just dump it there. And they dumped a lot of it. And you can see the old shoreline over there. Vegetation doesn't grow in these stamp sands. They built that stamp mill as close to the shore as they could. And then they just started dumping stamp sand. Not a few tons, not a few bucket loads, but millions and millions of tons, extending the shoreline out dramatically. Now, unfortunately, some of y'all might be knowledgeable about mine runoff and how mines, especially abandoned mines, can produce runoff as minerals that would normally decay over the course of millions and billions of years deep under the ground start weathering very rapidly and leaching nasty chemicals into the rivers and streams. Well, some of the stamp sands do that out here. In fact, I would venture all the stamp sands do it. Some are worse than others. The stamp sands on the Great Lakes, not a whole lot is done about. I don't know whether they're less toxic for some reason or whether they figure the Great Lakes are a larger body of water to absorb those chemicals. They're natural chemicals, natural from the earth, but it doesn't mean they're good for you and me. Some of the inland stamp sands that were dumped on inland lakes, those have become Superfund sites where nothing now lives in those lakes. Everything has died off. And the EPA has been working for decades to try to remediate the situation and get those lakes back to a point where they can support life again. These black sand beaches barely qualify as sand though. It's pretty gravelly. The stuff along the water's edge has been beaten up and weathered by the water to become a more fine-grained sand. So this is a lot nicer over here. This is feeling like sand. But I'll tell you this, it's not very comfortable. Whereas a natural black sand beach, as you'd find in Hawaii, has been weathered by the wind and waves, and the sand grains have been worn down to more spherical shapes. These sands and gravels, they've all been mechanically crushed and shattered. Now that means each piece, as small as it is very jagged and sharp. And it gives a real kind of sandpaper feel as you're walking across it. I know that's an odd comparison because, you know, wouldn't every beach feel a little bit like sandpaper? No, what I mean to say is this is abrasive stuff. It does not feel nice on your feet to walk over. I myself am doing this video in flip-flops. As much as I'd love to go barefoot on a beach, and I'm almost always barefoot on a beach, I don't tend to go barefoot on these beaches very much. In fact, I'll tell you a little story here. Back in my college days at Michigan Tech, I was up here during the summer, and some friends and I decided to go to the beach. And we went to one of the stamp sand beaches. You know, burn our feet running across the sand as you always do at a black sand beach, regardless of where it is. But we had a nice day out there. But at some point, one of the girls decided that she was going to play some catch with the football with a friend. They were in the water, running around playing catch. She was very athletic and very competitive. Well, the ball got overthrown, and she decided to be ridiculous and make a diving catch. And she leapt through the air, and she hit the ground, and she bounced off it like she'd hit the pavement, and she slid. She got up, and she was tore up. You know, if you jump and, you know, dive on a nice sugar sand beach, you know, people play beach volleyball. They don't end up horrifically scarred. And you can do that on a black sand beach too, usually, and not get maimed. But on this stuff, made out of all these jagged particles, it was like sliding across sandpaper. It was brutal. And yeah, she needed some light medical attention. But she didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. But I believe she was wearing about 35 or 40 Band-Aids the following day. Well, let's get a close-up look at some of these stamp sands here. You'll see greens for the epidote, blacks for the basalt, reds for the rhyolites. Maybe some pinks with some zeolite minerals that are weathering away. I see a little white, it's either calcite or quartz, probably quartz by the look of it. Let's grab another handful here. What you get out here is all the same material that you get in the tailings piles, just much smaller. And this is a big beach, if you want to call it a beach. I'm not going to go to the end of it, but I've poked this camera above the little bluff I'm at here, and look, well, it appears to go and go and go. And I'm not going to go much further than this because there are massive trucks that are hauling this away. That cloud of dust over there is another one of those big trucks having passed by, kicking up tons of dust. And I don't want to go much further in the direction I'm coming from here because I don't want to involve myself in their operations in any way. But you may be inclined to ask, why? Why are they hauling this stuff away? Is it the EPA? Are they finding a safer place for this? Well, no. In fact, there's not really a safer place for this unless you dump it back in underground and fill up the old mine shafts. That ain't happening. What are they doing with it? Well, the counties out here, I believe we're in Houghton County as opposed to Keweenaw County, and Houghton County is extremely active in utilizing all of its tailings piles and stamp sands. They set up shop on a lot of the tailings piles around here, and they crush up the larger stuff into fine stuff, and they use it for gravel. And it's a shame. I get why they do it. It's wasted land as far as they're concerned. It's a resource. Why pay a gravel pit to mine gravel when there's giant piles of gravel waiting to be hauled off? So the tailings piles around here are disappearing, and they're disappearing very fast. It's unfortunate. I do hope that some get preserved. I know the Nature Conservancy bought a lot of land up here that has a lot of tailings piles. I reached out to them with some of the groups I'm with and asked if we could help advise them on some of that. And they very nicely told us to F off and said they had some community panels or whatever. So I hope they really do, and that they're actually going to do something to preserve those sites but keep them accessible to the public. Now, as for the stamp sands, well, it's a similar story. They can haul it off, mix it up with some tar and whatever other ingredients are involved. I'm not a civil engineer, but make asphalt out of it and use it to pave the roads, just as the tailings piles are turned to gravel to lay down gravel on gravel roads. These stamp sands here are mixed up into asphalt to become paved roads. I suppose it is a more environmentally friendly solution because, in theory, the material inside the asphalt shouldn't be leaching anymore. You shouldn't have water working its way in and leaching chemicals out of it. So, well, hopefully it's a net good. I don't know. But yeah, that's the deal with our black sand beaches out here. Kind of a curiosity of the Keweenaw Peninsula. If you are interested in visiting a black sand beach and you don't have the money to go to Hawaii, come up to the Keweenaw Peninsula of Michigan. There are a handful of these places. The best of which is Breakers Beach at North Canal Township Park. That's right, because I forgot the name. And there's a handful of others, but really just a couple that are not super fun sites. They're not comfortable, but they are unique. If you've never seen a black sand beach in your life and you want to, this is a convenient place to do it. So I got locked into this location. So I presume this is not publicly accessible. I assume, despite the lack of signage, that it's a place I wasn't supposed to come into. Don't come to visit the gay stamp sands yourself. Visit the other one, Breakers Beach. So I've called the Keweenaw County Road Commission, and they're sending someone out here to unlock the gate. One of those trucks who saw me park there must have decided they were going to mess with me and lock me in, which is not cool. Speaking on the phone with the Keweenaw Road Commission, I said, I assume I'm not supposed to be here since I got locked in. He said, oh, I don't know, generally no. So they don't seem to be super strict about it, but I'm going to say don't come here because if the gate is locked, you can't get in. And if the gate is open, you might not be able to get back out. To learn the full story of what happened and to learn about the Keweenaw Road Commission's policies about visiting their locations, stay tuned to the end. Well, I'm at Breakers Beach, also known as the Breakers now. This is another stamp sand beach location. And I would highly recommend you come here rather than the gay stamp sands, if only because not only is it a little bit easier to reach and a little more beautiful, a little more friendly to visitors, you won't get locked in here. Special thanks to the Keweenaw Road Commission for letting me out of there and not hassling me too much about it. No thanks to the truck driver who drove past me, saw me, locked me in anyways, just to be a jerk. But thank you to his supervisor who drove 20 minutes out there to let me out. I do appreciate that. Here at the Breakers, this is very much a public location. This is a parking lot here. The Breakers is on the west side of the Keweenaw, and it is where the Portage Canal meets Lake Superior. And so you may see behind me here, there's a small lighthouse back there, and it's named the Breakers because it's got breakwaters that go out there. I gotta say they've really kind of cleaned up the place from the way it looked about 20 years ago back during my college days. 20 years ago, it was stamp sand all the way back to those trees back there, and it still is today, but they've successfully vegetated it, which has got to be good for the environment, I would assume. They got some signs up here, help protect the cover, no motorized vehicles beyond that point. And they've got fences all along the way, keep people from driving out on it. So back in the day, I mean, this was all just bare stamp sand, no different from this parking lot here. And so we would just drive out onto it, and then, you know, college kids would have stupid rager parties out here. On the road in now, they've got signs up that say no overnight camping, surveillance cameras in use. And back in the day, you know, the frat houses would organize parties out here, and they would bring out old used furniture and just have a bonfire made out of sofas and stuff. It was wild and reckless and irresponsible. And you can see these signs up. They've really done a lot of work to clean this place up, obviously. And I gotta say, it's probably all for the better. If I was a college kid, I'd maybe be disappointed about it. But as an adult, I look at that and say, okay, well, good. Good that's not wildly out of control anymore. This beach here is the one I was talking about, where I was out with friends and they were playing football. Not really playing football, playing catch with the football on the beach, and the one dove for it and managed to remove most of the skin from one of her legs by sliding across the very, very jagged sand. And I'm being reminded of that right now as I walk in flip-flops. This is not comfortable. You know, normally when you walk, you get a little sand in between your feet and your flip-flops. It doesn't hurt like heck, but this stuff, it's like walking on little pieces of broken glass. Now, this is a beach you can swim at. It is a beautiful beach to look at, and it's one you can just get in the water and go for a swim. As mentioned though, it's a bit, gravelly for your feet. Maybe it's like those exfoliating spa treatments as you walk through the water out here. I don't have my bathing suit on, so I'm not going to go deep. I think it gets a little sandier out there, but generally it's going to be all stamp sand wherever you can touch. And the stamp sand extends from about that point out there to the green trees you can see in the background there. And the currents tend to disperse the stamp sand pretty widely along the shoreline as well, so it may go beyond that. That dispersal by the currents is best seen from the air. But as I lift this drone up, let's get a look at the whole general area. Now, just 20 years ago, this whole area was black stamp sand. There was no grass or anything growing, so the EPA has really done a great job of remediating the site. The stamp sands go right up to the tree line. That's where the old beach used to reach. Now it's fairly lush, but it is all still fenced off. You are not allowed in there because it's very contaminated and the plants can't survive much. They're barely surviving the chemicals as it is. Have a look at those ponds right there. There is no amount of money you could pay me to go take a dip in those. Those look nasty, and it's probably full of the most toxic chemicals. Now, the same chemicals that are leaching from the stamp sand into those ponds are also going into Lake Superior, but Lake Superior is just a far bigger pond. It can really dilute those chemicals pretty effectively. Even with that dilution going on though, it's still not great for the lake and great for the ecosystem right here. Life struggles to survive in these coastal areas with the stamp sands. You'll see from the tempo of the waves here that I've sped this up as we move along the beach, but we're moving south here, and you can see the stamp sand mostly comes to an end here. It does continue to drift further south, but the beach is no longer dominated by stamp sand beyond this point. But you will find stamp sands quite a bit further, for hundreds of yards, perhaps even miles. I'm not exactly sure exactly how far the stamp sands reach. The breakwaters leading into the Portage Canal are absolutely stunning, and this right here is about the fanciest I'm capable of getting with my drone. It's just a beautiful sight though. I mean, look at this. And speaking of the natural beauty, I thought as I flew in on the lighthouse, my drone had scared off the seagulls from the top. It wasn't until the editing process that I noticed down below, there's a bald eagle. That's what scared them off. How great is Michigan? I just love this state. If you're looking for a black sand beach and you don't have the budget to fly to Hawaii or some other tropical destination, these stamp sands in Michigan, while not the same, can be a suitable substitute. And it's beautiful here. I mean, every white dot there is a seagull, so it's just like being at the ocean in that regard. Fresh water as opposed to salt water. It's just that the sand is quite a bit rougher and less comfortable. Please don't play beach volleyball on it. As for what the stamp sand is made of, it's basically the same here as it is in Gay. I mean, yes, the stamp sand came from different stamp mills that were fed by different mines, but generally there's not a huge difference between the stamp sands. It's going to be the vast majority basalt. It's going to have some red rhyolite mixed in with the occasional green epidote and other teeny tiny colorful minerals, some pink zeolites, maybe the occasional feldspar. All right, so my wife just asked me why the sand here, and she's bending over picking some up, is so gravelly, why it's so sharp. And I was explaining that it is stamp sand. So the waste rocks that come out of the mine go into the tailings piles, of course. And then after a while they say, hey, there's still some copper that we can get out of those tailings piles. So they take the material from the tailings piles, they take it to a stamp mill where it is crushed up and basically broken down into sand called a stamp sand because it's been through a stamp mill. And if the screen is jumping, it's because my daughter is smacking it with her head as she tries to bury my feet. And then they dump that stamp sand onto the nearest shoreline. And there can be some serious groundwater contamination problems and lake contamination problems associated with this. Although there are environmental remediation programs happening all over the place around here, trying to make sure that things can start growing again.
I'm hungry.
And my daughter is hungry. Anyways, that's why the ground feels so sharp and gravelly, is because these are mechanically crushed rocks that have been broken down to sand size. Oh, a piece of beach glass. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you where that beach glass came from. It didn't come from some exotic source. It came from college kids who were partying out here and breaking glass bottles probably about 20 years ago when I was coming out here. I was never a partier though. I watched it from distance with a look of disapproval. If you do choose to come out to Breakers, it's a convenient and lovely place to visit. There, as I recall, there are bathrooms up there, way up the road, up above where the stamp sands are, and there's a little pavilion. And the road out here is a bit winding, but it is paved until the last half mile. It's just about 10 minutes outside of Houghton, and even the dirt road at the end. Every car can make it up there. Even if you're wealthy and you're driving some little sporty something with, you know, no clearance above the road, you'll be fine. There's no potholes, there's no washboarding. It's real nice. It's worth coming out and checking out. And now the thrilling conclusion, including my rescue from the Gay Sands and what the Keweenaw County Road Commission wanted me to tell you about visiting their sites. So the story of my rescue was entertaining, but I did not have my camera out to film it, and there was a reason for that I'll discuss later. But what I ended up doing was being stuck behind the gate. I had to go and join my family for lunch. They were waiting on me. I was supposed to meet up with people shortly after that, and here I am, locked in at the Gay Sands. I don't mind being locked out of a location, but I don't like being locked into a location. That really ruins the rest of your day. And so here I am sitting trying to figure out what to do. How do I get out? There's no way around the gate. I got out, walked around. There's no little path through the woods that I could drive over. So clearly I have to either bust out the lock or call someone. So I call someone. And this isn't a 911 emergency, so I didn't bother 911. But I did try calling the police department. The police department in Gay, I don't think it's actually Gay. I don't think Gay has a police department, but whatever police department they use is one of the neighboring towns. As I recall, their police department wasn't open on the weekends. So, like, leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And then when I looked at their opening hours, turns out they're only open on weekdays. I'm like, well, if I leave a message, maybe they'll get back to me. And they didn't get back to me. They didn't even follow up days later, which I could have been dead out there. So they probably should have followed up at some point. But I thought, as I was sitting there thinking, oh, geez, the police are not going to come for me. They have the weekend off. What am I going to do? I said, well, there's a lot of signage here. This might be a Keweenaw Road Commission site. And, you know, there were big trucks coming in and out. I'm like, I bet this is Keweenaw Road Commission. So I had just enough signal on my phone to find the Keweenaw Road Commission's website, their phone number, and I gave him a call. Fella answers the phone, and I tell him my situation. he's not super happy about it, as you would imagine. I said, look, I'm locked in. I need someone to come out here and unlock the gate. It was unlocked and open when I drove in, and now it's locked. I'm stuck here. I need someone to come out here with the key. He's like, well, you shouldn't be in there in the first place. I'm like, well, I can tell from the fact that I'm locked in that that's probably right. I'm trying not to be sarcastic with him because he's going to be doing me a solid here. But yeah, I get it. When you're locked into a location, it's a sign that you weren't supposed to be there that long or at all. Who knows? So I understand. Can you send someone out? He's like, well, I can come out and get you, but it's going to be about a 20-minute drive. I'm like, look, I really appreciate it. He's like, yeah, just hold on. So I sat there twiddling my thumbs for about 20 minutes. And about 20 minutes later, he shows up. Now, I did not have my phone out to record this. And there's one real good reason why. What does it look like when you have your phone out recording a government official who's coming to assist you? It looks like you're going to be posting it to YouTube, which I'm a YouTuber. That would be a reasonable assumption. But it looks like it's going to be something angry, or I'm gonna sue you. I got you on record. I didn't want a confrontation like that. This guy was helping me out, and the Keweenaw Road Commission is great as far as the local road commissions go, because the Houghton Road Commission, if you're on one of their sites, they've got no trespassing signs up all over the place, locked gates, barbed wire security dogs, men with AK-47s. They're ready to, they don't want you on their sites. There's a little exaggeration there, but not as much as you might think. They would show up with police. And Keweenaw Road Commission is way more chill. So he rolls up, and I've got my phone away, and he's like, how did you get in here? I said, the gate was open, and I thought this was public access. I thought I was allowed to come in here. I saw tire tracks going in here, and there weren't any signs saying to keep out. So I came in, and I did some filming, and I explained exactly what I was doing. So I was filming content for YouTube, talking about the science of the gay stands and how the stamp stands work and what they are. And he said, well, you should have known not to go in there by the no trespassing sign. I said, well, there wasn't a no trespassing sign. He's like, yes, there is a no trespassing sign. It's super obvious. It's right there. Oh. Like, yeah. He's like, somebody stole the no trespassing sign. Like, well, if there had been a no trespassing sign, I would not have trespassed. There was no other signage up. There was a sign up saying no collecting. It said you can't remove any material. And I was a little bit surprised there were big trucks coming in and removing material. He said, oh yeah, those are our trucks. We're allowed to collect there, but no one else is allowed to. I said, oh, okay. He said, well, you should have also known by the fact that the gate was open, that you weren't allowed to come in. I paused for a moment, and I don't want to get sarcastic with him. I don't want to get confrontational with him. That didn't add up so well. So I said, what do you mean? I should have known from the fact that the gate was open that I can't come in? He said, oh, yeah, I mean, at our road commission sites, if the gate is open, that means we're inside working. And, if they're at the stamp stands, they're removing stamp sand. If they're at the tailings piles, they're removing gravel for the road work. And so if we're in there, we don't want anybody else in. But if the gate's closed, we don't really care so much. I said, okay, well, I know this now. And full disclosure, I was filming here for YouTube. I'm going to post it to YouTube, but I'm going to tell everybody, this is off limits. They're not allowed to come to the gay stamp stands. He's like, well, you don't need to go that far with it. We allow people here. We're not super strict about that. You just have to know that when the gate is open, the location is closed. And when the gate is closed and locked, the location is open to the public. I said, that's not intuitive to people, right? He's like, it's super obvious. I said, okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pick a fight with the guy because the guy is helping me out. All he has to do, he hasn't unlocked that gate yet. All he's got to do is walk away. So I say, okay, I understand. I will explain it to folks. He said, yeah, look, if if you tell people who might come here, you can tell them if the gate is closed and locked, you can park somewhere away from the gate. Do not park in front of the gate. You can park away from the gate and walk in. We don't mind the public being here as long as they're being safe, as long as they're staying out of our way, and as long as they're not interfering with our operations. So parking in front of the gate, that would be interfering. Getting in the way of their trucks, that would be interfering. But they don't otherwise care. And they don't want you out there while they're working. But if they show up while you're out there, they just want you to stay out of the way and leave. So if you do go to the gay stamp stands, just remember these rules. Number one, there is no collecting from the stamp stands. And that's because it is toxic material on a large scale. On a small scale, it won't hurt you at all. But they just don't want people collecting it for themselves, paving their driveway with it and then creating problems on their properties. So they have a sign up saying no collecting. That doesn't apply to them. So if there are large trucks coming and going there, that is probably the Keweenaw Road Commission. And so stay out. And if there are no trucks coming and going, maybe it's okay to visit. There's a no trespassing sign. Maybe, if they replaced it, if it hasn't been stolen. And also, they're kind of okay with you trespassing as long as you're not there when the site is closed to the public. And you know the site is closed to the public because the gate will be wide open and welcoming. And that means it's closed to the public. If the gate is closed and locked, that means you're invited to come inside. And check it out. Just park your car off to the side where you won't get in the way of any trucks that come in and out. And, if you walk along the road, stay off to the side. And if any trucks come in, you just leave the location. Just know that when they come in, they unlock the gate and open it for the trucks. And when they leave, they close the gate and lock the gate. And you do not want to be inside with your car when they lock the gate. If you're inside walking and they lock the gate and your car is outside the gate, you're going to be fine. That was not my situation. So he explained all this to me and he unlocked the gate. He let me out. I thanked him. If it had been the Houghton County Road Commission, they would have showed up with police to ticket or arrest me, even without the signage. I mean, I don't think I would have really gotten in trouble because they didn't have a no trespassing sign up. But Houghton County Road Commission, they are really nasty, frankly. The Keweenaw County Road Commission, these guys are true public servants. They do their work for the public good, not just to make money. And so this guy drove 20 minutes down there and drove 20 minutes back to let me out. And instead of showing up and trying to ticket me or scream at me, a little bit condescendingly, but he did explain exactly what went wrong, how their locations work, how I can explain it to others. And that's why I really love the Keweenaw Road Commission, because they have a lot of tailings piles that, if it was under the jurisdiction of the Houghton County Road Commission, would have surveillance cameras up and telling you to keep out, and police enforcement. And the Keweenaw Road Commission, they leave a lot of them open to the public. And at some of their locations, they even say, you can come in as long as we're not working. And that's awesome. I love these guys. And I appreciate whoever it was who came out to let me out. I appreciate your work.